Well, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening for everyone. We are happy to be here with you. And we welcome to the first webinar of the Iberoamerican AI Business Council of UNESCO's Recommendation Artificial Intelligence, which will be about responsible AI governance by design, how to make it happen. I would like to introduce you that this series of webinars, this is the first one which we were discussing before will be the best one, is organized by the Iberoamerican AI Business Council of UNESCO's Recommendation of Artificial Intelligence, and we will share concrete best practices for the practical implementation of responsible AI while highlighting effective ways to mitigate and avoid risks. This series will place particular attention on the socioeconomic opportunities provided by AI and its potential impact within Iberoamerica. The purpose of this first webinar is to focus on best practices for program governance and new organizational roles that might be needed for the successful implementation of responsible AI. We will be joined by Telefónica and Microsoft, two leading companies in ethical AI and co-chairs of the UNESCO AI Business Council, and they will share what new roles they have identified along with their responsible and functions. This time we will also be accompanied by the IDB-led FAIRLAC, the Regional Alliance of the Ethical and Responsible Use of Technology, to provide their perspective on the matter. So as you can see, we are in very good company, and Ángel Melguizo is the one who has organized and is responsible of all this successful event. So I am happy to start this. You know how it works. We have KA questions for you to use the chat, and it's going to be a very flexible discussion. So with this presentation, I will just introduce the first panelist. If I may, Ángel, or you wanna do it? Just okay. So our first panelist is our dear Richard Benjamins from Telefónica. We've been together in many occasions before, and he's an expert on all these issues. So we are very happy to have you here, Richard, and we thank you a lot for your presentation just in advance. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all. It's an honor for me to be here, and also on this Ibero-American Business Council for the AI recommendation of UNESCO. As already was said, we will speak about new roles that you need in an organization. And what I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share a document now, it's actually a very practical how-to guide, a 7-step approach for starting with the implementation of the ethical use of AI. And along the way, I will highlight some of the lessons learned from Telefónica and across other sectors. Of course, if you want to start with the responsible use or the ethical use of AI, the first thing you have to do is decide on your principles. So what are the principles that you should have? And of course, now at this moment, there is actually there is a good set of principles that companies can choose from. Of course, there's the great principles of UNESCO, which cover the important things that need to be covered. There are also principles of OECD, and there is also the European Commission in 2019 with the ethical guidelines for responsible AI. If you look at them in detail, they are all very related. So it's just a simple matter of preference or what is best fitted. But when we started, for instance, in 2018, there were none of those principles, and we were speaking about what principles should we do? Yeah, so we basically had a few criteria, and that is we had to respect our sector. Yeah, all the principles that we adopt need to be actionable, so in the scope of our action. So for instance, we speak about the future of work, maybe that's not something we can really deal with quickly, but if it's avoiding bias, then we can work on that. And also to focus, to decide whether you want to do something that is very related to AI specifically, like autonomy or human intervention, errors of machine learning with bias and explainability, black box models, or whether you want to include also things as privacy, security, which actually apply not only to AI, but to many other digital services as well. A first step that you have to do is decide on your principles. Then another important thing is that you need to get endorsement from your C-suite. Yeah? Of course, if this starts at the top, it's relatively easy. But if it starts somewhere middle out, you have to convince them. Yeah. So in Telefonica, we had the lucky occurrence of a kind of sandwich. We had much interest from the top. Let's say also in the middle, there were people who could move it, along myself, but also more at the bottom of the company, people who do it were very enthusiastic of it. Yeah? But if you haven't got C-suite endorsement, it's going to be very hard to make it happen and to move forward to do it for real. Yeah. The second thing, ethical AI is about asking difficult questions that usually are not used to respond, because usually you respond and you think about business, you think about profits, but this is also thinking about other things that reflect your principles, and that is so of course you can do very different approaches for the questionnaires. You can look about AI systems in general, use cases for a system that uses AI for a specific thing, entrance with facial recognition or reduction of churn, many different things. Or you can look at algorithms that can be reused across many different systems. So this is the decision that you have to make. If you are a user of AI as a company, maybe it's better to do AI systems, use cases, but if you are a developer of AI, maybe it's better to use algorithms. So that's a decision you can make. Of course, you need to characterize the systems of AI that you want to analyze. Otherwise, you have nothing to do it. You need to be able to document it. And the questions can be answered with yes, no, but sometimes it's better to have scales. So it's on how transparent is the system towards customers, and you give a scale from 1 to 5. And then, of course, if you make a statement in your questionnaire, I have no personal data, or I have checked my bias, then you need to have justifications for those things. Fourth step, very important, raise awareness and provide training. Easy training across the company, and then very specific workshops for the people who need to work on that. But you can't underestimate the importance of those things. Obviously, today, there is a lot of awareness everywhere about AI. So it's relatively easy to capture attention. A few years ago, there was different. Then fifth step, you have to come up with a governance model. How do you govern it? What are the processes, the roles and responsibilities? And then I wanted to highlight here on 3 new roles that we've seen as very important. First, we have the responsible AI champion, a RAI champion, which is the go-to person in any business unit if it goes about the responsible use of AI. Something like a data protection officer in every business unit if you talk about privacy things. Those people, of course, you have to train, but they are the ones that make things happen on the floor. Then we have an AI ethics committee, which is a multidisciplinary committee where the things that are escalated from the floor where the RAI champions are and the product managers are, for the difficult things, they are discussed in the AI ethics committee, and they only speak about ethics. They never speak about business, but only about ethics. If that doesn't work, it's not enough, then it's escalating to a business community, an executive AI business committee, where all the different businesses are, but also the ethics are, and there an explicit decision is made if there is a different topic. Things that can happen here is that you, for instance, if you use a variable like gender in your approach, then maybe you should remove that from the algorithm in order not to take it into account. So those are and then we also have what we call a role like AI ethics coordination. Those are the kinds, the change managers, yeah, the small group of people that makes things happen. Because of course something comes new and there might be resistance, and you have to do a lot of bring people together. So you need a small group that is pushing the boundaries and changing slowly the culture in the organization. Once this is completely business as usual, that's not needed anymore. But for the coming years, that's definitely needed. Yeah. That's the governance model. Yeah, you need to do that. Of course, then you need to run tests. Yeah, because you make a government, it looks very nice on paper. Then you try it in reality, and it might be a disaster. The questionnaire is too long, it's too difficult, or people are not willing to answer. So therefore, you need to test. We did 4 pilots. And based on the pilots, in the end, we got a very good insight of what does it mean in practice to do this governance model. Yeah? And then we started writing an internal AI governance model, which we are almost finishing now, and we will approve soon and launch as an official internal regulation. And from that point, it will not anymore a voluntary initiative, but it will be a compulsory initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. And that's why he's the chief of AI and data strategies at Telefónica. He's a genius. And many thanks for explaining to us the main ingredients and processes of a governance model for the responsible use of AI. I think we learned many lessons from what you said. Now I give the floor to David Marcos. David is a principal program manager and head of privacy operations for Microsoft Cloud and Artificial Intelligence division, managing privacy activities and driving privacy strategy and engineering across Microsoft's enterprise online services. Thank you, David, for joining us, and I give you the floor.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here to talk with UNESCO and the Business Council. I do want to just clarify, that was my prior role for working privacy. It's all right. Just for clarity for folks, I am actually the Director of Governance and Enablement for Responsible AI in Microsoft.
Well, congrats. I'm sorry.
No. It actually might lead up anyway to my discussion. And I want to thank Richard as well for his talk just a moment ago, because I think you'll find that there's a rhythm to what he's saying and what I'm about to say. So leading off what I was saying, I work in the Office of Responsible AI at Microsoft, which is the primary organization developing the policy, the governance, and the structure for how to build that responsible AI in the company. What I really wanted to talk through, and really picking up off of what Richard was talking about, is some of the more practical aspects of how we at Microsoft have thought through building out our program. And the way we've approached it, we have a hub and spoke model. We have these core hubs: policy, our office of responsible AI; research, we have a group, Ether, that does a lot of pushing the envelope and far-reaching research on a variety of things related to AI as well as responsible AI; and then engineering, folks actually bringing it to ground, building and implementing it to support the products that we roll out. This is all supported by a group, a community, predominant community that we help manage is the Responsible AI champs within that, similar in concept to Telefonica. And really the way we've tried to think about this is how to change and adapt the culture to grow into responsible AI. And that really comes down to empowerment and institutionalization. How do we empower these folks such that they can actually make decisions that are effective in line with how their business and product and tools work? How can they work with us as we set the structure and objectives in place, as well as the other hubs, research and engineering, to then actually result in institutionalization of processes that then lead to culture change. So some of the things that we've done to try and work through that: one is we've tried to identify not just the principles and standard that we have now available for people to see on Microsoft.com, but we actually have objectives that we try to use to drive more of the compliance implementation of the governance, like how to measure what is success and results. And in doing that, we set up this structure that allows people to start building additional process into their different organizations. Along with that, we've also tried to really work to clarify roles and responsibilities. So as you get into this space, this is a highly multidisciplinary endeavor. You've got lawyers involved, you've got engineers involved, you've got social scientists, you've got compliance officers, you've got managers. You've got quite a collection of people that you need to bring together and foment a positive and inclusive environment that allows them to actually work together in the community. So we help to try and define not just who those stakeholders are, but also help them know like what is your role, and how does that bump up against others so that you know when your role begins and ends and when somebody else's picks up and ends. And that really helps to let people know how to work within structure. Another thing that we also do is we've tried to figure out like how to scale this intelligently. So obviously Microsoft's a fairly large organization. We've intentionally set up a structure that federates control downward, going to really that key of empowerment. And this depends, it depends on the size of the organization and the organizational culture. But for us, if we're in the Office of Responsible AI, if we are too centralized, given the breadth and the size of the organization, it's just not going to work because we're only have so many staff and people need to be able to get answers in a timely way to get to market. We can't block them from being able to succeed in that way. So we've set up a model where we start to empower folks along the chain, going down into the hierarchy of how the organization works to help know, well, here's what we expect you to do, explain your process of how it's going to work, and then they keep devolving down and scaling as appropriately. And you can, if you take a step back and you think about that, you can see like how you can leverage that in your own approach. If you're looking at for your organization, again, whether it's large or small, but this helps to break down, the roles, the scaling, and also to increment. You could maybe start with like a core team and then slowly build out and evolve. And one of the things that Microsoft realized over its journey is this constant evolution of realizing what is the right sizing and whatnot. And it depends, based on the different organizations. We have very large groups that do lots of things. We have smaller groups. It's not a one size fits all. So being a little nimble on these things helps, so long as you are grounded in what are the key measures of success, how's that tie back to your standard in your principles. And one of the things we've also tried to really think through along that is really one of the big things is thing like the structure and the objectives of like how to fulfill the principles and the standards. So it's one thing obviously to have your principles, fairness, accountability, inclusiveness, and so forth. And Microsoft's are very similar to that of UNESCO, as well as what Richard was sharing on his slides a moment ago. But you want to translate that to a degree into, well, what are actionable things that people can measure to be like, I did these things, and these things add up to showing that I've completed all or portions of the standard, to demonstrate a degree of readiness that then demonstrates that they can actually responsibly release their product to the customer. And also then field questions. People come back and ask things, and you can walk back and forth to say like, well, here's how we've done this in a coherent way. So that's about all I had to kind of explain about that. So I'll turn it back over to Eleonora and Angel for Q&A.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. And again, I'm sorry for the.
No worries.
We're among friends, so we're fine. Now I have the pleasure to introduce our third panelist, Cesar. Cesar, it's easy. Your Cesar Buenadicha, which in Spanish is like something really nice. Buenadicha is. I don't know how to explain it in English, and I don't know why.
Good luck.
I'm
good luck.
like good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Because I don't know why I was going into that, but I loved your surname. It's Buenadicha. Well, Cesar is the Chief Discovery Officer in IDB Lab, EduTank, leading the work of the laboratory in the identification and co-creation of high-impact innovations and ventures. Thank you, Cesar, for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leonora. I'm going to change my family name to Good AI, no? Because we're in this.
Excellent.
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Richard, David. We've been working with UNESCO, with Telefonica, with Microsoft. It's been a great partner for many years in trying to understand how we can support in Latin America an industry of, responsible artificial intelligence that really helps the region to tackle some of the most pressing problems that the Latin America and the Caribbean indeed has. No, I work at the IDB Lab, which is the Laboratory of Innovation of the Inter-American Development Bank, which is the biggest source of funding for Latin America. Basically, we work a lot with supporting entrepreneurs and innovators in the region to bring new solutions that really can help, again, these kind of problems, from environmental problems to problems in the workforce, to problems in education, in health, that really we all believe that artificial intelligence can be a game changer. For that purpose, in 2019, and with many of you, we launched the FAIRLAC, which is an initiative that really wants to support a responsible and fair use of AI in Latin America. And maybe this is specific, we've been working with governments, with entities. We have not developed a specific set of principles because there are great principles that you've been working. We've been more working towards the adoption of those principles by entities, and specifically to see how we can make those principles happen, not on the top level, but also on the bottom level, with entrepreneurs, with the startups, with entities of the civil society, because we believe that in order to get an overarching approach of AI in the region and supporting responsible AI, we need to work from many fronts. Of course, governments and governance is critical, and we are doing that. But we need to have civil society, a startup, innovation, industry really empowered. So whatever happens, it happens from many different angles. It's not going to be just one top-down approach on one set of principles that are going to make things work or function in Latin America, we believe. It's the sum of many examples and many cases that really are making a difference. For that purpose, we've been working with governments in identifying specific use cases that really show how we can do responsible AI in Mexico, in Argentina, in Chile. And those cases are really setting the field for developing a governance, with universities, with the government, with the private sector, with entrepreneurs that work together under a same umbrella of understanding that we can make this happen. No? At the same time, one of our obsessions is really how we can support entrepreneurs, startups, because Latin America is a very innovative and vibrant region, really. And there are many people that want to start a digital startup, maybe using data and eventually using AI, no? And they want to do the best because people really care. The founders of startups, they care about using good data, good models, good AI, good ML. And for that purpose, we developed a self-assessment tool that is a way of bringing the principles down to the business model of the entrepreneurs. This tool we've been using with over 50 entrepreneurs and startups. We've been using it in Colombia in partnership with Impulsa. We've been using it in Brazil, in Mexico, in Chile, in many countries. And we have validated that these tools really helps in a self-assessment way for the entrepreneurs and the startups to understand how they can use better their models and how from early stages they can improve the model to make it more responsible to their users, to have less biases, to bring more principle-oriented, so it can really be a better fit for the society, because there are many opportunities in using technology for good, but the challenge is really that the technology from the very early stages is aligned with the goals and the principles that we want the technology to happen. So for that, I think it leads to a critical point for us, is that good technology is going to happen in a good industry. And the good industry happens when we have good incentives that recognize ethical AI as a critical tool for impact and for a responsible business model. So what we did is working with governments, so in their procurement processes, they recognize the responsible AI as a value added for the entrepreneurs. But also we are working with VC, with venture capital funds. So when they do their analysis, the due diligence of the startups, they start to understand how having or not having an ethical AI model or a responsible or a thoughtful, I would say, because maybe people is not about being good or bad, it's about thinking about the issues, no? How much thinking about the issues of what is an ethical AI really creates a better business model in which they are going to invest. So we are developing a tool that it helps firstly the entrepreneurs to do this self-assessment. On a second level, it helps the LPs of the venture capital funds to incorporate in the due diligence how they can really evaluate whether the model of a startup that they're going to invest incorporate these best practices. No, this is going to be critical really for the success of the industry in Latin America, and developing clear examples of startups that grow with the best principles. Finally, and the last thing we're doing with all this is bringing this together and all the learnings from the analysis of the self-assessment tool and the VC, so we could try to do what we call the Fair Tech Radar, which is, let's say in Colombia, we have analyzed 50 startups and we have analyzed different funds, and then we come with the critical pain points in the country. And we understand that the critical pain points could be biases regarding to gender, or it could be, cloud storage, or it could be whatever things that we identify that are critical. So that we are going to put to the disposition of the government, so we can start a dialogue based upon principles and based upon things that we are actually seeing in reality. Because I think one of the critical things that we need to do is going from top down to bottom up in developing this kind of responsible industry of AI in the region. The ethical performance is really, for us, should be an indicator of a healthy economic environment and of a healthy also a governance environment. So if you recognize, if we get the government, the private sector, the startups, the incubators, accelerators, to really see the value of a responsible AI, we are going to be able to start changing the country and to start changing the expectations, which we believe is critical, from the different stakeholders, from the clients, from the civil society, from the NGOs, from the watchdogs, from any entity there, no? And this is what we try to do in different countries with different projects and initiatives. We believe that there is still a long way to go in Latin America and the Caribbean. There are many challenges. There are many challenges regarding how we sell the whole idea of responsible AI to startups in a moment that the funding for startups is drying, no? So, but I believe really that this is the moment that these things should happen. When there is so much money, you never know where what you are doing is, because there is so much money that this is something that a luxury that you can really take, or whether this is really a must-do thing. No, right now we are getting into a moment in which, if we truly believe in responsible AI, must be taken into account right now in this current situation of funding in the region. No, there are many paths that we are exploring. One of them, I'm very proud to say, is the intersection between AI and gender in startups, really understanding how the whole models of startups in things like workforce development, training, can really support responsible models that do not discriminate women. And this is something that we're very proud. We launched in partnership also with Microsoft a challenge around that, and we're getting the winners. There are many things that can be done in the region, but my main message here is that governance needs practical examples, and practical examples really need to be thought one by one under an umbrella that connects all the stakeholders in bringing the principles into an applicable business model that makes sense for everyone. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the questions. I love the questions.
Thank you, Cesar. Now, Angel, it's your turn to moderate this fantastic panel.
Thank you very much, and obviously thanks first of all to Telefónica and to Microsoft, our partners and pushers and allies in this fight. Of course, IDB, when we envisaged this first webinar, we had no doubt on picking your brain and your action agenda. And I would also like to recognize that among the participants, we have GSMA, which is the leading mobile operators association, which we have partnered as well. A lot of food for thought and action for these 20 minutes that we have in front of us. Richard, just you mentioned the principles, and that there are many principles. It came to me directly the quote from the great philosopher Groucho Marx, who said, "These are my principles. If you don't like them, I have others." I hope we are not in that world and we stick to some principles, but seriously, you touched one key issue, which is there are a lot of principles. Every company, big company has principles. Almost every international organization has their own principles. And the goal of this, let's say, work of this business council is actually to join forces. To join forces because we need to mobilize the political capital and the technical expertise forward. It doesn't make sense to have so many parallel lines. And this is why we appreciate very much the SMA and the IDB who have been really pushing the politics in addition to the practice of this issue. And secondly, this council wants to share good practices, but really practical issues. I mean, the daily, you go to the office, how you start to work with that, as Cesar mentioned. And this is why I liked very much the practical things that we mentioned. So there are 2 or 3 questions in the chat, but I'm gonna get out a bit of the script and ask you directly, the elephant in the room. Do we need a pause? Is it going too fast? The AI developments, and we need just to sit down and wait 6 months until everything is in place, or we should get on with this running and hitting the road at the same time and just implement some of the key principles. Who wants to take this very first question, and I will address some others to each one of you afterwards.
I'm happy to respond to some of that. So, yeah, things are moving very fast with the development of AI and the sort of moment that we're all seeing going on. I think the challenge, as I've seen it, personally, as well as at the company and, outside my own life, you could say, hold on, but things are still going to move forward because technology is just always moving forward. I think what is really critical is that, yes, while it's disruptive given how fast it's moving, but folks need to kind of understand things now and understand, like, how does this impact me either now or in the future, to then influence how do you want it to be? How do you want it for your life? How do you want to talk to your representatives in Congress and whatnot, to figure out like what they should be shaping it for, as well as what you want to go talk to the companies who produce products you use, such as Microsoft, as to like what are your expectations to help us inform us as to what it is that you want and you see as a need. I think it's really important that we'll just be passed by if we don't actually understand it now. And being passed by, I think, will be more problematic in the long term than just understanding and trying to shape it right now in the moment as it's coming out.
Yeah, maybe let me add here, David, that I also think that following Angel reflections on the philosophers, Einstein said that movement is relative, no? So how fast is the AI moving? It's moving fast, but relative to what? To how fast the institutions and the organization are also moving and adapting, no? And I think that's not fast enough. Let me put this clear, no? I think one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is to make not just the AI moving faster or slower, which I think truly there is a discussion to be had there, is rather how things are going to move also in the direction of catching up with many of the challenges that we have. So let's say in Latin America, the education in Latin America, there is huge challenges in education in Latin America. And we all know the opportunities of AI and the new models of AI for supporting education in Latin America. Are we going to stop that? Okay, maybe we stop it, but what is the alternative? So really the key question here is, we cannot just stop one movement. We need to move all together in direction and try to coordinate, the vectors that we are moving towards goals that make sense for all of us, and particularly for the citizens, for the people, because the people need to see that this is not a dialogue around industry or principles. This is wonderful that we have this dialogue, but this is also a dialogue around social services, around how people see that their lives are improving or not with the technology, and this is something that cannot be done just by simplifying, things around technology. I think we need to open the scope of the technology and the alignment of the AI to make it broader and bigger, benefiting people.
Richard. We cannot hear you, sorry, Richard.
The act of moving, so it's moving very fast. I recently read a book. It's called 1,000 Brains, with a great theory on how the brain works and on how can AI work. And that says that movement is actually one of the key inputs why we humans are intelligent. Yeah? So without movement, we would not have been intelligent. So I think this is unstoppable. Yeah. So I think we can try to stop, but we won't make it stop. And if we manage to make it stop, we stop only some people and not the people who actually should stop. On the other hand, I think this whole movement of responsible AI is actually, it's a pause. Yeah? So we're constantly reflecting about the impact of technology on society, on people, on even on the climate. Yeah? So it is an important message to society. Hey, we should not like running fast without reflecting. Yeah, and I think we are reflecting all the time of this. We are reflecting by design. Of course, you can't foresee anything, but the important thing is that something comes out and, oh, what's happening? No, you have to think by design. If you see things, you have to prepare society. No? So I think those things are happening to a certain extent, but it could happen much more.
You know, thanks a lot, and you killed me, Cesar. I mean, I quote Groucho Marx, and you quote Einstein. You killed me that, but let me pick two issues that I think are very relevant. No, the first one is relativity, and we have seen in many emerging regions actually increasing demands from societies to improve education, to improve health, to improve the labor status. And it's clear that AI in particular and general purpose technologies in a more broader sense have the key. So indeed, a pause doesn't meet also the expectations of many of the societies, which demands better services, better quality of life, and that means progress in technology. But number two, very important, is the reflection issue that Richard also pointed out, and this is why, I mean, UNESCO joined some of the particular aspects of this pause call, but not the pause. We cannot pause, but it's important that we developed an AI which has some context, and context mean values, mean goals, and mean human purposes. And this is very much, I would recommend the point of the age of AI that Schmidt with Kissinger and others just published in the reflection on AI, in which they said AI without context is really a dystopian. So we need to put these values and principles on place, and this is why we cannot pause, but we should speed up also our institutions and regulations. Let me pose a second general question, which has been a bit behind our interaction, and then move to particular points for each one of you. And I think it was you. I mean, it was you, Cesar, who mentioned this idea of investors. No, and my question beforehand was, David and Richard, how are you seeing clients? I mean, your customers from Microsoft and for Telefonica services demanding, let's say, an ethical use of technology and more ethical-based developments. And how are also you seeing investors? No, because as we agreed some months ago, Richard, we think that this ethical digital agenda is lagging behind the green agenda, but it's coming. At some point, investors and citizens are going to value and classify companies that are either polluting either your environment or your digital life versus those who are, let's say, clean or even cleaning this digital life. How are you seeing this, let's say, this connection with the ESG goals? And in particular, how we can make sure that the digital agenda, we don't make the same mistakes that in the green agenda, which was very successful in some respects, but end up with a lot of greenwashing also on the other side. Any quick thoughts on this? Thank you.
Yes, I can give some quick thoughts. So obviously investors, both in startups and in large companies, are very interested in this movement of responsible AI. What we see in Telefónica is that they ask more and more, not only about the E of environment, but also about the S. And the ethical use of AI, privacy is very important in that respect. So we definitely see that that is an increasing trend. It is true that if you look at the let's say the annual reports of companies where they publish on the environment compared to where they publish on the social, on the S, it's still in initial stage, like 10 or 15 years ago where climate was, but I think it will move much quicker to become mature. In the sense of our customers, so let's say our enterprise or B2B customers, so not the residential customer, the B2B, we see also an increasingly interest in this. On the one hand, from the products that we sell to them and give to them, but also in helping them to understand the impact of how they use artificial intelligence, and especially public administrations, because they are very much affected by this, because they need to have the transparency. If they use algorithms of systems, AI systems that have an impact on citizens, of course, there are lots of requirements. We also try to give this as a kind of a plus, and added value to our customer relation, where we say, hey, everything we give to you has gone through a process of ethical AI, but we also give recommendations in the sense that's still more planning to show. But hey, we give you this system, but you have to use it for this. And if you want to use it for another purpose, then you make sure you have to go through the same process. You have to ask yourself about the impact, because this is really beyond our responsibility and beyond our scope, because the customer can do what they want, once they have it. But still, we find it important to inform them about the potential risks.
I'd add too, similar to what Richard was saying, like we're definitely seeing an uptick in customers asking questions, whether it's enterprise or it's our consumer base. And they definitely are asking things that start with, explain some of the responsible AI aspects. Or if they don't, they quickly go into that if they're starting with like, explain to me your AI product. One of the things we also are seeing is an increase in people asking things from different compliance perspectives, particularly privacy, because that's usually sort of the structure. People come in and understand the problem in this space. So they start with privacy, then they start to realize some of the broader responsible AI issues and the expansion of principles beyond what privacy has. And then that leads back into a responsible AI discussion. I actually had the chance to speak at the International Association of Privacy Professionals the other month. And that was actually the tenor of a lot of discussion of like, we have this baseline of privacy program, there's a new thing AI coming, how do we adapt and grow to it? And how do we start to respond to some of the questions coming in that may come in from the privacy, but really they're asking more responsible AI things, and how do we address that intelligently?
Yeah. No. And maybe just let me finalize, Angel, with an idea that we need to also to democratize the ethics. So we cannot make ethical analysis something that is very complex, very like, so I'm sorry, David, Richard, from big companies, that they have all the tools to have the time and the team to reflect on this. This should be something that should be, mainstream and streamlined, so everyone can really have the understanding and apply in their specific lives and conditions, what is ethical and what is not ethical. Because if we take the responsibility, to entities out there, I think we will never get the real empowerment of the people to understand that everyone is responsible.
And I'm going to follow up with you with this response, Cesar, and with you, because one of the questions in the, if you are still with us, one of the questions from the audience was the potential widening of differences between high-income countries and low-income countries, also between big companies that can afford to have C-level teams and try error, consolidate, as Microsoft or Telefónica did, and if not, go somewhere else, versus others where resources in terms of time and money are more limited. So I mean, how are you at a key leader development institutions working? And in particular, I very much liked your idea of including this criteria as a public good for investors, and also as a training and mentoring for startups. But the question is how to scale that up. No, after being very successful in experiments, how are you seeing, and how confident you are, and also what is the help and the support that you would ask guys as Telefónica or Microsoft, for instance, or UNESCO, to scale that up?
No, thank you, Angel. And this is a good and complicated question, really, because it's not easy, no? And sometimes let's be clear, for when we work with, in terms of the AI means data, and when you look at data as a market, no? You have Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, no? Yeah, wow, that's so many things, particularly in Brazil and Mexico. And then you have the smaller countries. So really, sometimes people don't really care about the data in those countries. Don't say about the AI, but just the data in those countries, no? So that's really a very complicated situation. I think we need to build ecosystems from many different actors. We need to have venture capital funds in countries, no? If you don't have that, how are you going to support that? So there is a very complex answer to this question. We are working with Telefónica, Microsoft. We've been doing this in really showcasing examples. We need examples of how this can be done, no? Really. So examples of how we support an educational system that really scales and transform education using AI in Suriname, that we are doing, or in Mexico, or in Mexico, in Chiapas, I was saying, in different countries that really can make a difference, no? If people don't see, there is this quote that I like, that action kills judgment, no? So there are many judgments there, but I think we need actions to kill those judgments, because otherwise we get stuck into the system of thinking, talking, convening, but we need to have practical activities, no? And also we need institutions, no? And this is very important. And from the bank perspective, no, we work with the ministries, with private sector, with everyone. Institutions matter, and institutions matter a lot in the digital era.
Thanks, and obviously, I mean, again, one of the goals of the initiatives that we are leading from UNESCO is scaling up. All right, each one of us has certain reach, certain expertise. But if we join forces, obviously, some of the very good practices that David referred to, that they have been analyzing, researching how to make things work, or even some of the pilots that you are doing in some particular emerging regions where we should go global and scale up. I'm gonna read to Richard and maybe to David, if he wants to chip in, exactly one of the questions of the chat. They are anonymous. All the questions are anonymous. I don't know how to take it, but one of the questions says, thanks for pointing to the many different principles. What does it mean for me as a developer to build a fair algorithm? Is this even possible? So a direct help for a developer, Richard?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, indeed, fair is actually an overloaded term. Yeah, so it means many things. So fairness is related to equal distribution, it's equal rights for everybody. In the context of, let's say, artificial intelligence systems and algorithms, it is mostly referring to that your system is fair in its decision. Yeah, so if you recommend a loan, or if you accept people for a certain service, then it is this acceptance is fair across different groups. Yeah, and especially and actually only about vulnerable groups. Yeah, so if you hire people and your algorithm should treat female and male persons in the same way and should not discriminate based on bias in the data, etc. And now, what does it mean in practice? Yeah, if you are running an algorithm. Now, a few concrete things that you can think. Yeah, first of all, look in your data whether you have a sensitive sensitive variables, related to gender, race, ethnic origin, those kinds of things that you're not allowed to make a decision, a business decision on those factors. If you have those data, remove them. And then if you build your algorithm, once you're finished, you can use those variables again to test whether your algorithm is actually fair or not. Now, sometimes you don't have any sensitive data in your data set, but you still may have innocent variables that correlate very highly. For instance, postal code in some countries correlates very high with ethnic origin, and if you discriminate based on postal code, you might actually make a discrimination that is illegal. No, so look for, if you have the data, look for correlations between sensitive things and innocent things. Find them systematically. Then if you find something, you can do many things. You can try to, before you train your algorithm, you can try to balance your data. So in your training data, you have equal amount of men and women. Sometimes you can do that artificially. Sometimes you can use synthetic data. Sometimes you can't. That's one thing. But you can also train your algorithm not only for the variable that you want, like lower the risk of defaulting on a credit, but also take into this objective variable fairness between gender or other kinds of variables. That's the second one. So the first is pre-processing, this in pre-process, the second one is in process, and the last one is post-processing. If you have a model that has already generated a result, you can still remove unfair discriminations. If you see that your algorithm actually gives higher credit to women than men, you can actually remove a few of the women, just to make sure that the outcome is positive. Of course, that will make your performance worse, but you do that in favor of fairness. So there are many things in practice that you can do. There's a lot of open source. Microsoft had a lot of open source algorithms that help you find out, detect, mitigate bias, and there are others as well.
I'll add, and I'll start with the tie belies. I'm actually a computer engineer, so I feel the pain of this question. What I would say is, and I'll go back a little bit to what I was saying earlier. Addressing this starts with a couple different steps, and part of it also then ties back to the community and stakeholders involved. So in terms of like the structure and steps, I'll just summarize. If you go to Microsoft's webpage that I shared, ak.ms/RAI, we have actually an impact assessment template, and we go through some explanation of how to walk through that to suss out what is the technology you're trying to use, what are the use cases, to start to frame out like what's fairness in the context of what you're trying to build. And fundamentally, that's going to come down to like what's reasonable. And that goes to some of the things Richard was talking about, like how do you measure these things, and then how do you feel that those tolerances when you set up are appropriate. Now, obviously, not every engineer is going to be an expert in all these things, and that's why you need a community of RAI champions and others that can bring more social science aspects to it, maybe data scientists, folks that can help you to make sure that the algorithm is actually running in alignment with what the principle is that you're trying to fulfill. And then I'd also say that as much as someone might, an organization might have a principle like be fair, and they might even have some enumerated requirements under it, there's going to be more particularized guidance that gets built out over time. And that guidance is going to be built out as a mix of technological things like, let's say, generative AI versus traditional ML, or maybe just simple user experience things that are a matter of fairness. Or it's going to be use case specific, like what are the specific rules you want to apply with respect to, say, a tool that supports finances versus, say, a social media type tool. And what I'd say is like, these are just going to be things that iterate over time. You may see some of these things in academic articles or published by companies that explain, plus anything that internally your organization starts to build out. And then I think, over time, what you'll see a lot of kind of things that may look like they're stovepipe single solutions, when you start to tease out commonalities that then become more detailed general requirements that can apply to folks overall over time.
That's great, and wait until somebody asks what is a green algorithm, which is also one of the areas in which, for instance, Spain is pushing the agenda. But I mean, this is what we wanted. I mean, practical questions. I mean, I think there are some resources indeed from the IDB with these self-assessment tools that they have in their web, but also the tools and the advices from Richard and David. This is exactly what I think we need, and the AI developers sector need. I would just add on a personal basis another angle, which is also devote a significant time before starting the AI development, whether you need it or not. Because sometimes you fall in love with technologies, and maybe some less energy intensive and less risky technologies can solve some of the problems that you might wanna address. And according to the research, only 5% of the time is devoted to thinking before starting developing AI. I think thinking would be one of the messages I wanna leave you with in this fascinating and full of opportunities world driven by AI developments everywhere, also in emerging regions where some of us are based. It's important also the values, the principles, and why not thinking. I give you the floor, Eleonora, with 1 minute, 2 minutes to wrap up. But I really enjoyed, and I hope the viewers, both live and also the ones that will be just viewing this exposed, should have enjoyed as well as much as I did. So thank you a lot for your participation.
Thank you very much, Angel. I was really happy to hear you discussing about ethics, because me as a bioethicist, I am really proud to say that at UNESCO, we are proud to have a powerful global tool to ensure an ethical trajectory of the development and application of AI, which is a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence approved in November 2021. This is an evolving instrument which should also be used by the private sector as an ethical compass. It has a lot of action plans which aims to translate the recommendation into national, institutional, and regulatory frameworks that will assist countries and also the private sector to promote the ethical use and development of AI, which in turn will ensure equal opportunities in this digital area that Angel was qualified as exciting, and it really indeed is. It also establishes monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to ensure impact. And one is the readiness assessment methodology, which is a methodology to identify the status of countries in terms of preparedness on how to implement the recommendation. With this readiness assessment, now at UNESCO, we're working to assist states in creating the institutional framework they need to develop AI. In Latin America, just in Latin America, we're working with Chile, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Ecuador, El Salvador, Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and the list will grow. And in addition, in Latin America and the Caribbean, in partnership with CAF, we are creating a regional council for Latin America and the Caribbean for the implementation of UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, which will be a space of political leadership for AI governance in Latin America and the Caribbean with an ethical, inclusive, and right-based approach. The launch of this council will take place in a summit of higher AI authorities in October of this year in Chile, and you are all more than welcome to come and to participate in this fantastic event. And well, I think we are done. We should close here. I was really glad and happy to be here with you, and I think this was the best webinar so far, and we will continue, and let's work together for an ethical artificial intelligence for the benefit of the whole society.
Thank you very much, and see you all May 30th, the next webinar of this council. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, David, and thank you all the viewers. See you.
A pleasure. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You.